Hello and welcome to Dunia's Alchemy. This is a GCSE Biology video on cells, structure and function. Here you have your video breakdown on the side. We're going to be looking at animal and plant cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, specialized cells, and then lastly mitosis. Organelles are parts inside the cell. So just like inside our bodies we have an organ, the parts inside a cell is called an organelle. And now we're going to look at all the different types of organelles. Cells are the building blocks that living things called organisms are made up of. Let's start off with the similarities between plant and animal cells. So the first thing they have in common is a nucleus. Another thing is this lining called a cell membrane. Note how the cell membrane is on the outside of the animal cell, but on the plant cell it's the inner lining. We're going to look at what the outer lining is. Next is your cytoplasm, followed by the mitochondria, and lastly your ribosomes. And soon we're going to look at what each one does. Now as you can see from these two images, you can see that your plant cell has some extra features that are not found in the animal cell. So let's have a look at what they are. So now we're going to look at the three organelles that are found only in the plant cell. The first one is called a cell wall. This is made up of cellulose and it strengthens and supports the cell. Notice how this is on the outside, whereas the cell membrane is the inner lining of the plant cell. Next we have a vacuole. This contains a sugary solution called cell sap. And then finally we have chloroplasts. These absorb light for photosynthesis. So now that we've looked at all the different types of organelle, we're going to look at their function. The first one is your nucleus. This controls cell activities. It contains the genetic material like your DNA and your chromosomes found inside the cell. The next organelle is your cell membrane. This is a barrier and it controls the entry and exit of substances. Next was your cytoplasm. Your cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance where chemical reactions happen. Followed by your mitochondria. Mitochondria is where energy is released through respiration. And then finally your ribosomes. Ribosomes are where proteins are made. Now that we're done learning about all the different organelles and their function, we're going to have a look at the differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Examples of prokaryotic cells is a bacterial cell, and examples of eukaryotic cells are animal and plant cell. So let's have a look at the word prokaryote. The word pro means before, and karyote means nut or center. When we combine them together, it's essentially talking about before the nucleus. So our first key point about prokaryotes is that they do not have a nucleus. We're going to look at an example now of a bacterial cell, which is a prokaryotic cell. Let's identify the organelles inside the bacterial cell. So first we have a cell wall. So similar to the plant cell, it has a cell wall. However, the material of the cell wall in a bacterial cell is different from the one you find in a plant cell. You also have DNA in a loop. DNA can also be found in circular form, and that is called a plasmid. And finally, your inner membrane would be your cell membrane. So looking at this, you can see what they have similar to eukaryotic cells, and you can see what they have different. And we're going to put that now into a table. Now this table should be quite straightforward for us now, especially since we've had a look at how bacterial, animal and plant cells look. Remember, your animal and plant cells are eukaryotic cells and your bacterial cell was a prokaryote. So DNA is in a single loop, also found in rings called plasmids. However, in eukaryotes, they have a distinct nucleus. Prokaryotes are smaller. They're only about 0.2 to 2 micrometers. However, eukaryotes are much larger and they range from 5 to 100 micrometers. Prokaryotes have no membrane-bound organelles, meaning mitochondria and chloroplasts, whereas eukaryotes we looked at, they do have membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes reproduce through binary fission, whereas eukaryotes reproduce through mitosis. The first type of specialized cell is called a sperm cell. The role is for the male DNA to reach the female DNA inside the egg cell. First, it has a streamlined head and that contains enzymes to digest through the egg membrane. It has a long tail to swim, and it also has many mitochondria in its cell to release the energy needed to swim and fertilize the egg. The second type of specialized cell is called a nerve cell. Its role is to carry electrical signals around the body. It has branched connections at the ends, so a network can be formed with other nerve cells and impulses passed along. The cells are also very long, and that is so they cover more distance. third type of specialized cell is called a muscle cell, and its role is to contract. It does this by having many mitochondria, and that's so it can generate energy needed for muscle contraction. The fourth type of specialized cell is called a root hair cell. Its role is to absorb water and minerals from the soil. It has thin cell walls so water flow isn't disrupted. It also has long hairs that reach into the soil. This is so the plant has a large surface area for maximum absorption. We are now going to look at specialized tissues found in the plant. Just like our arteries and veins carry blood around our body, phloem and xylem are vessels that carry nutrients around the plant. Looking at these two images, I want you to tell me what you see similar and different between the two. You can pause this video. So let's look at the phloem. Inside the phloem, you have the movement of sugars and amino acids. It has end walls, so you can see that you've got these walls spanning the middle of your phloem. And they have perforations, which are basically these small holes that allow the sugars and amino acids to pass through. It also has a two-way flow, and you can see that through the direction of the arrows. Looking at the other side, you have the movement of water and minerals. There are no end walls, so it's hollow. It's a one-way flow system, as you can see the arrows are facing upwards. And the walls are thick to support the plant. Earlier we looked at how the nucleus contains genetic material. This material comes in the form of chromosomes. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, one from each parent. There are two main stages of the cell division process, the growth and DNA replication phase, and then mitosis. So let's have a look. So the first step is the cell increases the amount of organelles, for example its mitochondria and ribosomes, and this is where the DNA replication and the growth is happening. Once that is done, the chromosomes line up vertically and are pulled apart by cell fibers. The third step is that once they are pulled apart to opposite sides of the cell, new membranes form around each set and become nuclei for each new cell. And then finally, the cytoplasm and cell membrane divide. This is our video complete. We have now gone over animal plant cells, prokaryotes, eukaryotes, specialized cells, and mitosis. Thank you for watching, and make sure you do the 3, 2, 1. Share it with 3 others. 2 clicks, subscribe and like, and finally 1 comment. Have a great one.